thank you. These thousands of people here, you never expected that.
It's intimate.
It's very intimate, yeah. So we'll talk about quantum technology and frequency medicine, and how to improve blood, protect the DNA, and to boost ATP. I'll walk through basically just the scientific studies and results and the different things and methods that have been used and found. And I'll also provide a video towards the end. It's just a 5-minute video that was actually taken live in front of actually over 100 people at the last Biohacking conference in Orlando a year and a half ago, where we live on stage did an allergy test with someone that was and still is allergic to crab meat. That'll be very interesting, and so that the person doesn't need to go through that again here, we decided to just show the video. Okay, and I'll start with it's just a video to just tune into a little bit something deeper, because what we're talking about is extremely scientific, because we can show so many amazing changes, but at the same time, it really starts on a consciousness level, on an energetic level, and that's something I want to really bring and invite everyone into this world a little bit, because we're all energy beings. We run around and pay our bills and do our jobs and tend to forget that that's what we really are. And maybe this video inspires a little bit. And I'm not going to play the whole video, by the way.
Let's imagine for a few moments what our life would be like if we could access, let's say, 20% of our brain's capacity.
If you want to have something show up in your life, the kind of person you would like to become, manifest something new into your life, something powerful, whatever it might be, you obviously must first be able to imagine it. Your imagination is able to do all that you ask in proportion to the degree of your attention. So, what kind of attention do you place on your desires? Einstein's most famous quote, one of his most famous observations, he said, "Imagination is more important than knowledge. Knowledge is limited. Imagination encircles the world." Logic will get you from A to B, but imagination will take you everywhere. Make your future dream a present fact by assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled. That which you feel yourself to be, you are. And you are given that which you are. So assume the feeling that would be yours were you already in possession of your wish. And your wish must be realized. So live in the feeling of being the one you want to be, and that you shall be. If this assumption about what you would like to become is persisted in until it becomes your dominant feeling, the attainment of your ideal is absolutely inevitable. You must first assume the feeling of a wish fulfilled in all aspects of your life. Don't allow anybody else's opinions. Don't allow what it says on the internet. Don't allow the research. Don't allow what anybody out there tells you is possible or not possible for you. If you advance confidently in the direction of your own dreams and endeavor to live the life which you have imagined, you will meet with a success unexpected in common hours. It will chase after you if you can place into your imagination what it is that you would like to attract and begin to feel it. Start retraining your subconscious mind. And your subconscious mind, it responds to what it is that you suggest to it. Your subconscious mind rules your life. 96 to 97% of everything that you do is done as a result of your subconscious mind. And when your subconscious mind gets programmed, it goes ahead and responds to whatever it is your conscious mind has placed into it. You are the creator. This is the mystery. This is the great secret known by the seers and prophets and mystics throughout the ages. This is the truth that you can never know intellectually.
Many of you, as I have been, as I am, are where you are in your life based upon what you believe. And it's not just what you think you believe on the surface, it's also your shadow beliefs that are holding you back from moving into the life that you believe you deserve. What I know is if you're not looking at the shadows, if you're not looking at what is subconsciously running through the tape in your mind, telling yourself you're not good enough, you're not worthy enough, you're not smart enough, you're not enough, which is a tape that's playing for a lot of people. If you're not conscious of that, then you end up acting out of that belief system and not out of what you know to be the truest or want to be the truest for yourself.
You are where you are today, in part because of what you've been saying about yourself. Words are like seeds. When you speak something out, you give life to what you're saying. If you continue to say it, eventually that can become a reality. You are planting seeds when you talk. At some point, you're going to eat that fruit. My challenge is make sure you're planting the right kind of seeds. If you want apples, you have to sow apple seeds. If you want oranges, you can't plant cactus seeds, poison ivy seeds, mushroom seeds. You're going to reap fruit from the exact seeds that you've been sowing. In other words, you can't talk negative and expect to live a positive life. You can't talk defeat and expect to have victory. You can't talk lack, not enough, can't afford it, never get ahead, and expect to have abundance. If you have a poor mouth, you're going to have a poor life. And this is great when we're saying things like, I'm blessed, I'm strong, I will accomplish my dreams, I'm coming out of debt. That's not just being positive, you are prophesying victory, prophesying success, prophesying new levels. Your life will move in the direction of your words. But too many people go around prophesying just the opposite. I never get any good breaks. I'll never get back in shape. Business is slow. I'll probably get laid off. Flu season is here. I always get it. They don't realize they are prophesying defeat. It's just like they're calling in bad breaks, mediocrity, lack.
You don't become what you want because so much of wanting is about living in the space of what you don't have. That's why Jim Carrey's story is so powerful, because he started to act as though he already had it. He would go up to Mulholland Drive, he would drive away thinking, I already have those things, I just haven't accessed them as yet. I believe those things are going to come to me and I'm going to act like they are, so I'm going to move forward in my life in order to draw that to myself in such a way that my actions are in alignment with what I say I believe. So if you start to think about that, really, why are you where you are in your life? The choices that you have made have been because of what you believe to be true for yourself.
The time is now. The time is now to express and for people to believe in themselves. The time is now for it to be okay to be great. People in this world shun people for being great, for being a bright color, for standing out. But the time is now to be okay to be the greatest you.
You can talk yourself out of your destiny. Negative words can keep you from becoming who you were created to be. Don't fall into that trap. Quit calling in defeat. Quit talking about how it's not going to happen. You should write down your goals. Write down what you want to see happen in life. Any areas that you're struggling in, where you need to improve, write it down like it's already done. And then every day, declare that decree. Read over it a couple of times out loud. It's not enough to just think it. Something happens when we speak. You have to prophesy your future. Those words will get down on the inside of you. They'll not only change your outlook, but they will change who you are. Your words will become your reality.
Okay, so that was the intro while everyone else joined. Thanks for being here. I want to share quite a bit about the scientific background and the studies all around the quantum technology we developed. And that was an intro to just invite everyone into this world, because on one hand, it's very scientific. On one other hand, it's very woo, because we're really talking about a very high consciousness field or a quantum energy field, which our brains don't really understand much about. So this picture is pretty much the only thing I'm going to show here about our products, because this should not be a product presentation. My last presentation, I didn't show a picture like this, and then I was told, well, but how do your products look like? Can you please show a slide? So, okay, so I'm responding to that, and this is the so-called quantum block technology we developed. The breakthrough really was that we were able to harness and concentrate a pure quantum energy field in a fashion never done before, without any electric brute force or magnetic brute force. Whereas there's some technology out there that leverages some quantum energy, but then they add magnetic brute force or electric brute force, and that destabilizes the field, and then it actually isn't even positive anymore. So, because of the fact that we know that this is very new technology that is hard to understand, how can this work if I don't plug it into a wall or have a battery operated? We focused very early on lots of studies. And the way we do that is we give our products away to various different institutes, labs, and doctors' offices. In the beginning, they did their testing with different test methods, and then it went further into randomized, sham-controlled, double-blind, and single-blind studies, of which we have now multiple in various different fields, because we also felt like this is such a key technology that we didn't just want to use one test method like HRV testing, for example, and just prove that over and over again. No, we wanted to look into everything. Like, where all can it help? And we're by far not done yet. So we have the Beta Institute in Austria. It's actually the largest independent research and testing institute for biosystem analysis and biofeedback in Europe. The EGIF Institute is the largest electrosmog EMF research institute in Europe, and then the Emoto Institute in Japan. Most people, you probably have heard of that. Masaru Emoto was the pioneer that was able to show how you can change the energy in water and how you can actually visualize these changes. And Dr. Rubik is another pretty famous doctor actually in the US that has run 5 randomized sham-controlled studies so far with our technology. BioWell, a clinical study in India with autistic kids, an ATP production study. We, by the way, have Ian Mitchell here in the back. He's our chief science advisor and a brilliant scientist. He's helped us a lot putting some of this together here, and he's currently doing some very interesting research in regards to wound healing. We may mention that as well. So that's just the Base Institute here. They certified all of our products by going through their rigorous testing. What they do is they test, for example, cellular voltage in all of the different organs, and they can tell whether your organs are in a good, healthy state, or if they're in a deregulated state, or if there's like a rapid decrease in healthy organ function, for example, which could be, resulting from a toxin that you're exposed to, EMF as an example, or various other stresses that you can expose your body to. They tested neutralization and harmonization of EMFs in all kinds of different levels. I think that is the number one claim we can make, because there's literally nowhere to be found where our technology doesn't harmonize and neutralize EMF. And we'll get into that. We'll even talk about the electric car study. Positive impact on the physical body in general, a significant improvement in the blood, improvement of food and water, up to really the harmonization of negative frequencies in water and groceries, like herbicides, pesticides, fungicides, and so on. They also ran even studies with quantum entanglement, which is a little bit spooky, but it's absolutely possible with our technology. So that's basically an influence of an object or physiological organism over distance. And then also transformation of destructive belief systems and trauma, right? So it really gets into emotional trauma release. The electric car study, I just picked this because it's interesting, fascinating how the world is talking about electric cars and are embracing that. And hey, yeah, it's kind of fun to be an electric car because it's so fast. You're rapid at 100 kilometers per hour just within a couple of seconds. But the impact on the physical body is really underestimated and not looked at. The highest exposure by far and large in any car is an electric car, and it does not matter whether it's a Tesla, an electric Porsche. We tested the Teslas and electric Porsche. That is, by the way, right now in Europe, the strongest electric car available on the market, the Porsche, and that was actually part of this study here. So people get lasting effects from that. Like we've personally even spoken with people that have lasting migraines from being in an electric car, and now even get migraines that turn on if they even go into a regular car, because the body has been programmed that it's going to be impacted like that much, that it's such an impact on the physical body that even if you get into a normal car, the body already reacts, even though it's not even an electric car. So it really is something of concern that we should be aware of, but it's also not too much of a concern because thankfully there are ways to mitigate it. So, here we go. So the result was basically that in all the experiments that were done, regardless of how strong the exposure was, our technology was able to harmonize all of the effects that were shown in all of the different organs. And that's actually quite fascinating. So the longer you drive an electric car, the higher your EMF exposure. And you can actually measure that with a regular meter. Right? You just have an EMF meter and you can test that, and then you drive it for like an hour, and then the exposure is higher. Now, if you then have a passenger that is surfing on the web while you're driving and you are on the phone, then you start to have all these different signals amplifying each other to a new level. And so you can see that then in the different organs and how you can measure cellular voltage and the health. And some people really react already with migraines or headaches at that point. So all of that was neutralized. This is just a snapshot on how that looked like. They did before testing, so before you even got into the electric car, then with EMF in the electric car, and then they had all the different measurements, right? They even tested what happens when you charge your battery. And by the way, if you have an electric car, do not stay in the car when you charge your battery, because that is the absolute blast. Like even if you use our technology, it still showed it's all green, which is there is no negative energy anymore. It's actually supported, but still it's a lot of energy. So you don't really want to expose yourself to that. And this is just a snapshot. It just shows all the granularity that they went through. I don't think you can really read this here, but the first one says lung, the next one is the skin, and then the large intestine, connective tissue, the stomach, and the bladder, etc. So they really looked at it on a very granular level to see what is going on and how the organs affected. And basically everything was green here with the technology. And so the benefit really is because if we think about EMF, it's a big stressor in our lives, but it won't go away. Like, we're not going to tear down the cell towers, and who wants to not have that convenience, right? I used to be VP at T-Mobile International and T-Mobile US, so it's a great industry. I still love that industry. I'm not talking bad about it. There's a lot of convenience for that, but if we can live with that and not have the negative impacts, that's really where we want to go. So this is just the HEAL capsule. They did some a lot of short-term studies and the long-term studies. In all of the cases, this is pretty much the picture you saw, that it was able to really harmonize the situation. This is the different certificates here. This is one of the most recent studies here that I want to go into early, which I really love the story about it, because so Ian Mitchell, who's there in the back, he knows this, a professor at the University of Tulsa. Yeah, exactly. And so he's an expert in the field of cell cultures, looking at ATP production, at wound healing, and lots of other things. That's what he does. He has this big lab there, and he's been doing this, I think, for over 20 years, right? He's a biochemist and associate professor there, and he's very mainstream. So he thought that an energy device or technology wouldn't do anything, right? Because it's just energy, right? And that's what some of you may also think, right? How it's just energy. How can that do something? And there's another story later that I'll come to that was very similar to this one. So that's for us the perfect one, actually, to run a study with our technology, because we know that is going to be the biggest challenge we have, right? He doesn't believe in this, and he just thinks this is not going to work. What happened, though, is that it showed an increase in ATP production consistently, and already after, I think, 5 minutes, when the first measurement was taken, it showed that increase, and the increase was 20 to 25%. So now everyone knows who Dave Asprey is, and he's not in the room, but I texted Dave Asprey right after the study, what came out of that, and he responded, "This is absolutely brilliant." He has not heard of anything that can reach 20 to 25% increase in ATP production. Maybe if you do these 10, 11 things all at the same time, you can get it there, and certainly not with something like this. This is amazing. And ATP production, I mean, most of you probably know, but it's the currency of the body, right? So it's, you can live without food for some time, you can live without water for less time, and then you're very fast dead, actually, if there's no ATP production, like almost instant. Is it like a second and a half?
It's a few seconds. Yeah. You're gone in under 30 seconds, even if you're very healthy and robust.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what you need in order to just function on a physical level. You need it for mental performance, for physical performance. So now it's just important. And the study, by the way, was not small. It was definitely statistically significant, and they had 96 cell wells in the control and 96 cell wells in the group that was charged. And it was double-blinded, so the professor didn't even know which were the cells that were charged. And the cell wells, I think in each cell well you have hundreds of thousands of cells, just so you know, like, the dimension of this. So this was not a small sample size. Oh, and I should maybe mention he did the study 3 times.
in quadruplicate.
Yeah. Then the EGIF Institute certified our products as well. They look at it, they call it electrosmog in Europe, the EMF situation, and they were very pleased to see, all those positive results. We don't need to go into details. Here's just a heart rate variability study that I picked that they ran with the HEAL capsule, where they did two different sets of tests. One set was just before and after, and then one was also had Wi-Fi exposure in between. And then they left Wi-Fi on, and then they introduced the Heal capsule. And in 100% of the cases where there was a negative impact through the EMF shown, that was completely mitigated by the capsule in this example here. Now, dark field microscopy is the next super fascinating one. And here in the US, I meet a lot of people that have not heard too much about dark field microscopy. You also can call it live blood analysis. And the reason is that 20 years ago, more or less, they started to collect a $100,000 license fee per year from any practitioner that wants to use it for diagnostic purposes. Isn't that interesting? And now this is the only tool that allows you to look at your blood in a magnified fashion, and you can see in real time what's actually going on with your red blood cells and white blood cells. I wonder why it would cost $100,000 to use that. In Europe, by the way, and in Russia, it's still widely used, by the way. So we started off giving our products to a doctor's office in Austria and said, hey, you have this capability with a live blood analysis, could you run some tests? And in all of the tests, phenomenal results were shown. This is just one example. On the left, you see someone with some light blood clotting, means higher risk of heart attack, stroke, and heart disease. Within 5 minutes of placing his hands in our weakest block, the so-called quantum block, it shows a completely different picture, something that you would usually expect after several months of some very positive treatment. This was already done within 5 minutes. You see the blood is more oxygenated, you see the red blood cells are nicely separated, so that's what you want to see. Just another picture, that was the so-called quantum t-shirt. And then I was sent a podcast by Dr. Beverly Rubik, who is the authority in regards to dark field microscopy in the US. And she had been on the podcast and she had voiced concerns over the increasing EMF exposure in the US and in the world. And she had run multiple studies showing the negative impact on the blood, right? And then someone sent me that and said, you may want to reach out to her and tell her that you have a solution for that. So that's what I did. I reached out to her and said, Dr. Bowley, looks like we have a solution for this. And she said, I don't believe that. Well, then I said, okay, well, here's the tests we've done so far and all of that. And she said, well, this all looks very promising, but she still doesn't believe it. And I said, okay, so what would it take for you to believe it? Well, I would have to design a gold standard study. And so it needs to be sham-controlled, randomized, and single-blinded. And maybe double-blinded. That's not too important, but those factors. And I said, okay, so how can this be done? Well, I do this for a living, right? I do this all the time. And I said, okay, could you please do that? Okay. So she went and did that, and then she said, okay, I'm about ready, and we're going to start with 4 test persons. I said, 4 test persons? No one's going to believe me if it works for 4 test persons. This is not a big sample size. She said, I operate under the assumption that it's not going to work, so I don't want to blow your budget. We'll start with 4 test persons, and if it works in all the cases, then we know it works, and we'll just do more with the next study and take it to statistical significance. I said, okay, well, let's do it. And then the picture changed. After she was done with the study, she called me and said, oh my God, you have the solution. And this is not just the solution for the EMF, this is also for what they put in your arm. The blood clotting issue is just huge right now. You have a solution for that. And then I put on the brakes. So the picture completely changed. I said, well, this was for test persons. We don't really know if it works like this, all the times. And then, well, so far I think she's done 5 of these studies now, and she took it already in the second study to statistical significance. And it has worked so far in 100% of the cases. So it's not that this is like something that randomly works. No, it works all the time, up to the point where stage 1 and stage 2 of blood clotting was able to be reversed in 10 minutes in all cases where that was present. And I'll show you some pictures here, and you'll see it, even though you're not experts in this. On the left-hand side, you see the baseline blood, right? And that, looks okay. It's not a very unhealthy person, but it also doesn't look that good. And by the way, nowadays you see worse blood is much more common. Now, and Wi-Fi was not on at this point, okay? So she has this lab where she can completely have all Wi-Fi basically blocked out. So now, Wi-Fi was turned on to see what's happening. Those are the red blood cells. They're starting to clot, and you'll probably like, ooh, that doesn't look healthy. Exactly, it does not look healthy at all. That's not what you want to see. And then also what she found is that white blood cell activity and motility is basically paralyzed through EMF, and that's part of your immune system force, so you want that. So now what happens after 10 minutes of quantum block explosion, and that's our weakest device, our weakest block, this is how it looks like. And Wi-Fi was still on, so that's very important to say. It's not that they turned off Wi-Fi, no, Wi-Fi was left on to see the effects. And it was not just extremely better than this, and it reversed all of that. No, it was even better than the before test. So, and this just shows what she looks at. There's, I think, 5 different aspects in the blood that she looks at. One is like the rouleau formations, these so-called money rolls, and how the clotting goes back, and the white blood cell activity, and several other things, and all of them improved across the board. I think I mentioned the water structure study already out of Japan. Not sure if I mentioned that they have been now reselling our products in Japan since 12 months, which they've never done with any other product so far, because they're not a typical reseller, they're just an institute. And they just found this to be remarkable, what this could do to the health of the water. Basically structures it, so that's what it does. So in their world, maybe some people here know a little bit about the Emoto analysis, but out of one beautiful crystal, the quantum block was able to produce 5 beautiful crystals within just 3 minutes. It didn't tell me much, but in their world it was a lot, apparently. This is an interesting one that is not published yet, so you won't find it on our website. All the other research you can pretty much read through on our website. This will be there soon. So someone out of our community had found out that his autistic child that they treated with the Infinity Block got so much better in all the measurements. So they had a team evaluating the kid basically every day of the week, 3 times a day. And Mondays was always the worst day. And then suddenly Mondays was the best day. And the kid had no clue that this was happening. And then a clinic in India that is focused on helping autistic kids, that's all they do. They heard about that, and then they reached out to me and asked if they could facilitate a study and if we could help with that and provide the technology for that. I said, of course, and they're happy to. And so what happened is that they had 42 kids in that study, and some of the kids were actually off the spectrum after that study, and on average, the so-called ADDIC scores were reduced by 20 basis points on top of the 10 basis points that they were able to achieve with their own system. So they created a system with specific diet and nutrition, and they're able to reduce that by 10 basis points. But they've never been able to take it any further than these 10 basis points, even if people just continue with the diet and the supplementation and everything, and there's nothing they've been able to do. So now with our technology, within just 6 months, on top of that, they were able to reduce it by another 20 basis points, which is really, really a lot. And it improved across all the different things that were measured. It's usually speaking skills, focus, attention span, things like that they looked at. And it was very interesting. And on an energetic level, we knew beforehand, because we have a team of very gifted people that can see these energies, and they know what's going on in an autistic person, because they're not really in the here and now. That's one of their struggles. They're in this alternate reality. And so the high frequency, the high vibration of the technology basically pulls them into the here and now. That's what is happening on an energetic level. we still didn't know, is that going to really translate also in a bettering of focus, language, speaking skills, etc. Food sensitivity, and we're getting closer to that video. That's very close to my heart because more and more people have food sensitivities and even allergies, right? And so this is a topic that really came through our community. We did not know actually at first that that our technology could help with that. And then it was reported by some people that they could tolerate substances that they were allergic to when they charged these substances in the blog. And well, so I don't really want to talk about this one thing that we had here at the Biohacking conference because I want to show the video, but I want to say already that there's a clinic in Germany, in Munich, that has been doing more research now with our technology, and they finished a pilot study and they were able to show a 65 to 95% reduction in allergy response across all the different things they tested, which included gluten, lactose, and more. And with sugar, which is interesting. So I love sugar. If I can eat a truffle or a nice chocolate, I'm a happy guy. But it's not good for my body, right? So it was shown in this study that you can achieve a 70 to 90% reduction in stress response if you charge the chocolate in our Infinity Block for 4 minutes. Which is quite remarkable. Good. And so we'll come to this video. This is just a slide that should come afterwards. But this shows just the research we're involved in right now. And none of the research, by the way, we run ourselves. Again, it's just external institutes and labs. There's the food allergy study, which is still ongoing. The sugar study is separate and is also ongoing as a larger sample size. A wound healing study in the US, and I'll actually have Ian come up here after the video real quick and just say a couple of words maybe in regards to that. And another live blood analysis study by Dr. Rubik, and a study with dogs and cats specifically. We've been asked a lot about that. And a study in regards to plant and vegetable growth, which is interesting. So we've seen quite some phenomenal stuff there in regards to much faster growth and much bigger vegetables. Like we've had zucchinis, by the way, just last year. My wife, she's here, she took some pictures of me holding the zucchinis. Those were so big, it was almost ridiculous. And a study with professional athletes in Austria and in the US, and then a study with the DNA company. I think Ashiv, the CEO, mentioned us yesterday in his talk a few times. So they're running a study, and then there's a biological age study as well going on, as well as I think a biostrap study. And then one interesting one here, a men's health study. So we're looking into sperm quality and quantity, which I think is a more important topic by the day. And we have a lot of reason to believe that our technology will actually help quite significantly with that. All right, so let's see. I think this is the video now coming up. And by the way, so my wife, she's sitting here. She's not hiding, but she's... So with those healers, we work together to develop our products and also specific frequencies. I don't want to go too much really into our products here because this was really about how do we do it and how does it work, right? But we have developed certain frequencies for certain use cases, and then we always develop them with the healers together and then look with them together how it actually works. And then we know it works. We know 100%. We don't need to do dark field microscopy or all these other tests for us to know that it works. We then still give it to people for those tests, and then we'll do the scientific studies afterwards. But that's the cadence on how we develop those products. So I think we don't really have to go too much through it. We're a conscious business. I want to mention that. Just, we plant trees for every purchase, and we support autistic kids in India. And now I would like to ask Ian and Todd Shipman here on stage. I'm so thankful. It was really their idea to to do this allergy test here. I'm excited. And yeah, you guys, maybe you can say a few words about it, and then we should probably relatively quickly do the first test that we get through for the second test, because we'll need to do some charging in the meantime. So Todd Shipman, for the people that don't know him, so he's actually a very famous biohacker, right? So he's definitely at the right place here. He has a Facebook biohacking group with 40,000 people, and he actually also has this bulletproof diet and nutrition group.
Yeah, we have the Bulletproof Diet and Support Group, and the Biohacker Tribe group, and then I'm Biohacker Todd on Instagram.
Hi, I'm the token scientist. So most everybody here, either knowingly or unknowingly, has had something. How many of you, show of hands, how many of you have had the coffee since you've been here, the new coffee? Okay, well, everybody who's had the coffee has had something that I developed. So yeah, happy to help. Woohoo! Yeah, so I'm actually kind of behind the scenes. I do a lot of work with NASA and quantum shielding and all sorts of things that are at the very cutting edge. And this is another one of those technologies that most people don't realize it, but the concepts that we have, kind of the first bit of woo-woo that was shown there, actually alludes to basically the mental constructs, or what defines how people progress through technology. And a lot of times the constructs are what we don't really quite grasp. We haven't grasped it fully, and they need to be developed more. And that's just temporally, that's what happens. Over time, we advance. So we're going to start this off, and then we'll gab a little bit more. But I called Todd because Philip asked me about doing an experiment here, and I thought, well, how can we demonstrably show this in such a way that you're taking something that fundamentally to a lot of people seems like magic, because you don't actually physically express anything, but it's happening on higher order frequencies, and it actually has a great deal to do with spin, which I can or cannot get into, and I'm happy to discuss ad nauseum with anyone later. But I called Todd and said, hey, I've got this idea. Let's try this thing. And Todd is like super daring biohacker. He said, okay, so something that I'm allergic to. Okay, and you tried it with honey first, right? Yeah. Didn't get really much of a reaction topically with the honey. And then I said, okay, what else are you allergic with? And he said, crab, really allergic to crab. Do you want me to put some in my eye? To which I said, no. I appreciate the enthusiasm, but no, I really don't want you to wedge crab in your eye. So what we decided to do in lieu of putting a crab in his eye was to take a little pinprick and prick his skin. Are you guys familiar with the way an allergist used to do a histamine test? Okay, so everybody's seen that. Okay, so what we're going to do is basically take a little micro needle and do a little dermal roll and just basically abrade a certain patch and just do micro punctures. And then we're going to put just a little crab in it. And as planned, Todd will have a reaction. Now, does somebody have an EpiPen? No, totally kidding. Okay, we're going to go ahead and do this.
So, oh yeah, okay. So what he's doing is he's just using the derma roller right now to that all the hair is pretty much gone, like he did before, and now he's with a needle going to put the crab on again into his skin, right? Exactly like he did before, but now he's using the exact same crab that was now charged in this block. Okay, so let's.
Passionate about this, I'll just take a sec. So the interesting thing that you guys were just looking at, how many of you think of yourselves as solid? I would imagine most of you. The reality is, and how this actually functions from a scientific basis, is you're not, right? You're a collection of vibrating things at a very fundamental level. So when you have a histamine reaction, it's happening at a biochemical level, but that's literally kind of a tertiary effect that's about 3 steps behind what's really happening. So if you look at what's really actually the constituents that make up pretty much everything, it's all vibrations and waves. And when you look at vibrations and waves, you see things either move in an additive harmonic fashion where it's constructive, or
they can be cross-nodal, and that's a destructive interference pattern. So when you have a destructive interference pattern, things lose energy and they have poor responses. So in this case, you simply modulate the surface at a very, very low subtle level, close to consciousness. And the consciousness actually manipulates it so that it's better for your body. And the amazing part of this to me is the experiments that we were just doing, we kind of have what I would say is the smoking gun of quantum biology. So we did these experiments that Philip had talked about earlier in triplicate, or in quadruplicate actually, but we did them 3 times, and we were 7,000 miles apart, and we were able to elicit a 20 to 25% jump in ATP levels every single time. And the crazy part is, I was the only person who actually knew. You guys didn't know, the other professor didn't know, no one knew. And it happened every single time. And so the thing that I think I'm probably the most excited about with all of this is that what that tells you is that there is some fundamental underlying intelligence and connectivity between everything. And so what I've been trying to kind of beat the drum on, which sounds, from sort of the token scientist in the mix, a little bit woo-woo to say, but you very quickly realize that your thoughts have an impact, and everything you do actually has an impact. And basic fundamental physics, anytime you have a thought, there's either an electrical or an electrochemical potentiation. That sets up a wave, and that wave is going to propagate. And even though it's infinitesimally small, it's going to propagate forever. So whatever you think and whatever you put out really does have an impact, and we've just shown it in a very pronounced fashion. So what I'm trying to kind of beat the drum about is just be nice.
Clarification, do you mean that the quantum source was 7,000 miles away from the reaction?
From the actual cells, yeah. Yeah, and every single time out of the entire grouping, it was parsed out and found the exact cells that were supposed to be, that I had selected, and neither party knew. So it was a blinded setup.
Double blind.
Yeah, truly, double blinded setup, and every single time. So, and to me, that was just remarkable.
And what was the quantum source?
Our technology.
You have different forms of that technology.
Well, yeah, so what I showed initially, you may not have been there, it was just a picture of the different blocks. So we have other products too, but really the most potent, and which is like the extension of our technology, is the blocks. And they have a very concentrated quantum energy field inside. And with them you can do all these great things like put your hands inside, harmonize EMFs, but you can also basically do quantum entanglement. And it sounds crazy, but it's absolutely possible. And in this case, though, we use not a block, we use an advanced system, and we call it quantum upgrade, which is way above just a block. But yeah, indeed, it works over distance, and it frankly doesn't matter if it's a mile away, 10 miles, 7,000, could be 100,000 miles. It really does not matter at all. I think we're running out of time, but I would like you, if you can, just mention the wound healing study real quick, just real quick, so that people have heard about it at least, and then we'll have just a couple of questions, I think, and then we need to wrap.
Okay. So right now at the university where I used to teach biochemistry, I'm a reformed teacher, so I would teach to seniors who were going off to go to medical school. And so it's a very academic environment, and the other professor that we work with is a very staunch academic. But we decided to try this wound healing experiment. And so what we found with the first iteration that we've done, it's almost a 2x in the pace of wound healing. So again, seemingly bizarre from the outside from a scientific standpoint, but the data is the data. And in my particular take, what I used to tell my students is science is a point on the line, right? The best science we have in the world right now, 1,000 years from now, people will look at what I've been teaching and say it's laughable, right? Because the pace of advancement is ever increasing, and demonstrably we're able to show more and more things that have really tremendous degrees of import. And unfortunately, none of us have a quantumometer at this point, right? We really, when I run an analysis on something, and we've done this multiple times, as lead-ups to the wound healing, I'll take a compound like something standard like vitamin C, and I'll run a spectral analysis on it. And the gas chromatograph or the high-pressure liquid chromatograph says this is vitamin C. What that really is akin to is saying, you've got a box, and it's a blue box. Where we are in science is we can't actually assess what's inside the box, right? Because there's a tremendous degree of things that actually have import, like the pressure gradient, the chirality, the spin. The electrons are point particles, they express, they have spin. When you actually get those things to become coherent, it's akin to saying that all the power in the solar system is because the planets revolve around the sun. It's not true. There's a tremendous degree of confined angular momentum because the planets rotate on their own axis. That's a tremendous source of power, and it's the same thing with point particles. When you can confine all that inertia and get it moving in a uniform fashion with one purpose, governed by consciousness as it appears to be, then you have a tremendous benefit that expresses physiologically. And so we're seeing that with the wound healing, where the pace of the actual fibrin and elastin and collagen buildup is ridiculously quick. I mean, it really is at 2x. And so we'll be putting all of that data out and publishing it shortly.
Thanks so much, Ryan, for everything, and also for coming up here. And I just want to say just one more thing. So we obviously can't do like a live bed analysis at our booth, and we also don't want to put anyone through what Todd Shipman had to go through with the derma roller test. But at least we have a BioWell at our booth, and there's a before and after testing, which is not very scientific, because the problem with the blocks is that, I mean, it's not a problem, it's actually a great thing, right? But in this case, for the before and after test, it's a problem, because as soon as you're already walking in the hotel, you're already in the field of the blocks, because the blocks have such a large radius. And the way it works is, the closer you get to it, the stronger the field. When you get the before test done, in a scientific environment, you would have no block assembled whatsoever and do an accurate before reading. If you do the before reading at our booth, you're already positively impacted. Like your chakras already improve, your energy level is already increasing and balancing because you're standing right next to the block. Still, there's still some uptick to be seen when you then put your hands in the block. So whoever would like to do that and get their chakra analysis, there's also more actually, but we don't really have the time at the booth to go all through the details. You're welcome to stop by at the booth and have a team member do the before and after testing for you. And yeah, that's it from me. I think maybe we have a couple minutes more of questions and answers if you want. And other than that, I would say, just come to our booth and ask all the questions there. Yeah. All right.
I noticed you're not wearing a capsule. Is that because you've got the lockdown